Now joining us over the phone to discuss this further is Arzu Merali, the Islamic Human Rights Commission, from the Islamic Human Rights Commission. Arzu, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Now, do you think this trial will act as a deterrent for any European nationals thinking of going to fight for militant groups such as ISIS?
I worry that it's not really going to be a deterrent, and if anything, it may well, in fact, increase the demonizations of Muslims per se. And the reason for that is that I've been following the media coverage of this, both in English media and talking to colleagues working in Antwerp and in Belgium in general. And what you find is a very easy and lazy association between the idea of religiosity and terrorism, the link between being a practicing Muslim, or the idea of a link which we know is ridiculous, between being a practicing Muslim and somehow being an enemy of the society you live in, the enemy state. And I think these prosecutions in that sense are very ill thought out. They seem to be essentially confirming that narrative and turning it almost into a kind of state narrative.
Now, do you think that the UK and other European countries should put similar extremist groups on trial?
You know, if somebody's committed a properly criminal offence, you know, that can be tried under the existing criminal law of the country, of course they should be tried. You know, if they're guilty of murder or conspiracy to murder or any other type of criminal offence, by all means, please do that. And in fact, do that. What I'm concerned about, and a lot of human rights activists are concerned about, is the idea of setting up completely different types of laws which essentially just target Muslims. And in the last sort of 15 years, even before 9/11, we've seen Europe-wide anti-terrorism laws that simply really only target Muslims, and they have completely different rules applied to those communities that they're targeting. So, you know, you could be just merely tried on suspicion of something. People are being tried for essentially thought crimes.
So are you saying that by going by the actual actions that have happened, it would less demonize the religion as a whole?
Certainly, people who've committed criminal acts need to be tried for those acts, but they need to be understood as criminal acts just as other criminal acts are. And if there is a kind of element of it being political violence, then, you know, it needs to be set in the context of the fact that there are many acts of political violence, and actually you'll see Europe-wide most political violent acts or so-called terrorist acts are not committed by Muslims. So, you know, unfortunately, we're not getting that picture when we have these types of trials. We're getting this kind of frenzy that everyone feels worried that there's an imminent attack and assault on civilization by all Muslims. And we know that's very far from the truth.
Now, do you think that European governments are fostering or preventing the spread of extremism among young Muslim youth in Europe? And what should they be doing?
There's a general trend at the moment in societies whereby everybody's feeling disenfranchised from the state. You're living in times of austerity, and amongst that, different groups have different responses to the different types of crises, and not everybody's experiencing the hardship in the same way, although the hardship is felt by pretty much all people. So you're getting the rise of far right amongst white working class youth. You're getting a kind of UKIP type narrative in the middle classes, which is very anti-immigrant and also very racist. And you're getting these types of, political violence or the espousal of this type of political violence amongst Muslims. And this is just a few of the communities, not all of the communities Europe-wide. And governments across Europe are not dealing with this systematically at all. They're scapegoating immigrants, they're scapegoating Muslims. They're creating an idea that there's a kind of threat to being European from these groups, which is completely untrue. When you actually look at who's suffering the most, it's actually people from those communities. And this is very, very harmful. And let's not forget in the Syria context that since 2011, for a good 2.5 years, the European media were hyping up the conflict there and supporting the rebels in a way that made that a very romantic vision for young people, whether they're Muslim or not, to go over there and fight. I know there are a lot of people who went over there thinking they're fighting in something like the Spanish Civil War on the sides of the leftists. Now the truth is unraveling. But this is not something that, you know, European governments were ignorant of. They were very much part of that. And there's a two-facedness, if you like, that I think is disillusioning young Muslims even more when they now see that they kind of went to Syria being applauded and came back being criminalized.
Arzu Merali from the Islamic Human Rights Commission, thank you very much for joining us today.